Monica, and thank you for your service today, and everyone else who does service on this wonderful meeting. It's beautiful to just sit back and listen to people's different accents when I go on meetings around the world, and what a wonderful thing we have, this global fellowship, and that's a beautiful thing to come out of this global pandemic. It's just lovely to feel at home anywhere in the world. I was really getting a warm feeling inside me when I was listening to everyone speaking. So yeah, thank you. My name's Young. I'm a very grateful recovered alcoholic today. Thank you, Thambi, for inviting me today. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to share. I was thinking about the reading. I love that reading from the big book, and I was thinking how, I'm not a saint, but each day I do try and grow along spiritual lines or spiritual principles, because this is what keeps me well today. This is what keeps me recovered and gives me that mental defense. My sobriety date is the 24th of the 12th, 2018. I have a sponsor, he has a sponsor, my sponsees, they sponsor, and my home group is the As Bill Sees It Sunday Sheffield meeting. Yeah, I was in and out of the rooms for many years before I got well, and like it, going back to that reading as well, it says, rarely have we seen a person fail who thoroughly follows this path. I believe Bill Wilson put in there originally, never have we seen a person fail. I've never seen a person fail who lives this spiritual life, who has gone through these steps, who has had this spiritual awakening, who keeps awakened by certain simple spiritual tools such as praying, meditating, helping others each day. I've seen people fail that used to do those things and stop doing it, because I believe we can have the spiritual awakening. I talk about myself, and I can go back to sleep if I don't keep flowing with this power inside me. Like it said in the other reading, I have tapped into this inner resource, and if there's any newcomers in the room or anyone who hasn't been through these 12 steps, when I was at the end of my drinking, I wanted to die every single day. I was at a place of absolute desperation, and I could have never have known where this, to use a horrible cliche, where this journey was going to take me. Like we say, how dark it was before the dawn, and it was very dark. My drinking took me to some very dark places. I was living in the lower power for many years. It mentioned in that book, in that reading, about good and evil, I believe, or good and bad. And I was living in the dark side of life for many years. I started drinking at the age of 11. That was my first drink, and I finished at 43. That's a long time to be blocked out from the sunlight of the spirit, but having no idea that I'm blocked out. Because like it says in the doctor's opinion, men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. After a time, they cannot differentiate the true from the false. If I've been drinking all my life, I don't know another way to live. I think that's the only normal way. I don't know what normal is. And, I remember when I picked up that first drink when I was a child, I was a very unhappy child, very unhappy. My mum is still an active alcoholic. She was very violent towards me. She was very cruel, and I found life really difficult to navigate when I was a kid. It felt very spiky. I didn't understand it. I used to look at people and wish I was them, wish I was somebody else. I was not comfortable in my own skin. And when I picked up my first drink, that left me. I got a sense of ease and comfort. And I can say that now because I can look back and understand it. I didn't understand at the time. All I knew was when I drank, I felt better than when I didn't drink from a very young age. There was a lot of other things in that I used as well to get me out of me, such as drugs, later on women, gambling. I was always looking for something. I was looking for something outside of me which made me feel better, but I was looking in the wrong places. Once I did have the spiritual awakening, once I did have a spiritual experience, I can see very clearly that was what I needed in my life so that I could appreciate life for what it was, a beautiful, amazing, precious thing, rather than something that I felt like I had to endure it. I used to wake up in the morning and think, oh, here we go again, another day. That's what my eyes were like. On a meeting I was on this morning, we spoke about the psychic change that it mentions in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when my sponsor took me through, he said to me, the reason I'm taking you through this big book is so you have a psychic change, a spiritual awakening, you get God or good or higher power or whatever you want to call it, this power into your life. We learn how to keep it there by doing certain spiritual practices each day, and then you pass this stuff on to the next person. This is how you stay well, young. And like I said this morning, there were certain words that really confused me. How would I know what psychic change means if it's the first time I've heard that word? And he explained to me, all it means, young, as you go through these steps, you'll start to have a shift in your consciousness. The way you see will be different. The way you feel will be different. The way you behave will be different. Your attitudes will start changing. And that's been my experience, because I was so desperate at the end, I didn't do half measures. And I haven't done half measures for the last 3 years. And the more I do, the better I feel. But I was speaking to someone today, and I think sometimes I can simplify it too much, because this is how I feel today, and go, well, all you got to do is this, this, and this. But I need to remember, for the newcomer especially, that at the beginning, it did feel like I had to put in a lot of effort. It felt like this human ball that I was pushing up a hill, and I had to dig deep. I had to dig deep. But then the more I did, it kind of went and it leveled out. And then it was kind of, you know, it's a pleasure to do these things each day. But I need to remember that for the newcomer, that I did have to dig in deep. But also what I need to remember, what I needed to do was, someone on a share the other day was talking about intellectual pride, and how they explained that as, I hope I'm getting this correct, you know, only doing things that make sense to me. So there was many things in this program that didn't make sense to me, and I needed to just do them to get well. I couldn't kind of work them out intellectually. But this is one of the wonderful things about the fellowship. There was people that had been around a lot, you know, long. Well, I was a newcomer, so of course they did, but 10, 20, 30, 40 years. My sponsor's been around 34 years, and I trusted these people because they'd been where I'd been. They'd been to this place of desperation. They'd been, you know, catapulted from death to life, and they were like on fire. And so I trusted them. So I trusted what they said, even though I didn't understand it. I was willing to go through with it. And it was only when I go through with it, and then I go through the experience, and then I start to understand a little. But I don't really need to understand it. I just see that it works. See that it works around the world today. I see that because I go on a lot of meetings all over the world. One sec. And so when I was a child, you know, we know that alcoholism untreated gets worse, never better. You know, tells us in the book, my experience tells me that. It's a promise. Untreated, I used to think I would just wake up one day and I'm going to stop smashing myself up on alcohol. One day I'll just stop. I'll get the right girlfriend. I'll move to the right city. I'll get the right job. External things will fix me. That's what I believed, because I had no idea of the progressive nature of this illness. When I picked up that first drink, I would have no idea that it would lead me to losing everything I owned, all my morals, and it would end with me being a completely broken soul, broken physically, mentally, and spiritually. I would have no idea. If I did, I probably, well, who knows, I might have stopped then. So as I said, when I'm a kid, I'm drinking, it becomes a weekend thing. When I was at school, I can see the alcoholism was in me very, very quickly, because, you know, I know today that it doesn't matter how much we drunk, what we drunk. You know, the point is, an alcoholic is someone that has a mental obsession when they're not drinking, needs to drink to get that sense of ease and comfort. When I say I'm not going to drink again, I always go back to it. Once I start, it releases this phenomenon of craving. I have this allergy of the body and I react differently to other people. And I don't know where it's going to go. So I can see that was in me from a very young age. When I started drinking every weekend when I was at school, during the week, I'm just thinking about the weekend. You know, I cannot wait until it's Friday. I cannot wait until it's Friday. You know, the obsession is on me from a young age. I had no ambitions at school. You know, people wanted to be an astronaut or a carpenter or a bus driver or whatever. I just wanted to get as intoxicated as possible and chase women. That was my whole ambition. You know, I was a very troubled and confused young person. And that continued throughout my life. And you know, I've done a lot of things in my life, like most people. You know, I'm 46 years old today, so you know, I've had a full life. But alcohol was I can see it took a long time to get to a place where it broke me, because I thought, as long as I'm earning money, as long as I've got material things, I'm not an alcoholic. I thought an alcoholic was the guy on the park bench swigging from a brown bottle. I didn't understand that it doesn't discriminate. You know, I became a DJ and I worked in the music industry for many years, and it was almost the perfect and the worst job for an alcoholic like myself, because it meant that people give me free alcohol. I can drink as much as I want, and people almost expect me to be intoxicated so I could get away with things. I only have to work, you know, Friday to Sunday. The rest of the week, I don't have to do a lot. Or I didn't. And then I discovered if I did certain powders, I could drink for days on end. And then I do other powders and other pills and I don't have the jitters. So this carried on for many, many years. And, you know, I got the partner, I had children, and it was my daughter's birthday on the 13th. And I was just thinking, you know, at her birth and the birth of the other two children, you know, the most wonderful day of my life. I was in the toilet down in vodka, you know, because I needed to, not because I wanted to. And that's what we talk about, the powerlessness in step one, which I didn't admit for many, many, many years. I hated myself after downing that vodka. I remember the feeling I felt. I had that real self-loathing. And for many years, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror, because the mirror did not lie and it told me the truth, and the truth I did not want to see. As the years went on and I become a liar, I become a cheat, I become all those things that I hated. I'm having to hide my drinking from my partner. I'm hiding bottles around the place. I'm driving my children to school and nursery when I'm very intoxicated. I'm stealing off my partner. I'm taken to a place which alcohol takes me to, which no human power can stop me from doing that. And I know that today. This is why I needed to get to this power quickly when I surrendered. I needed to get to that power quickly, because my sponsor told me, and this has been and I will go through this in a minute, I'm like a ticking time bomb when I'm sober. I am going to pick up unless I get this power, unless I tap into this inner resource. And I get that through working through the steps. So I'll fast forward a little bit. Things start falling apart in my life. I start losing, the consequences are coming. I start losing things. I start losing work. My partner is very unhappy with me and my behavior. She starts suspecting that I'm a full-blown alcoholic, not just a party animal, as I got away with for many years. At the end, she chucked me out, and that should have been the moment where I said, right, okay, that's it, I'm going to stop drinking. But like we say, frothy emotional appeals seldom suffice. If I was just a hard drinker, that would be the moment I could stop and win the family back that I love dearly. But not so the alcoholic, not so me. There's no human power that's going to stop me, even though I want to stop, and I want to stop doing these things that are hurting people I love and hurting myself and having grave consequences in my life and for my health. So I went to a drug and alcohol agency to try and get help. And one of the guys there pointed me in the way of the 12-step rooms. And also my partner had chucked me out of the family home. So I've lost that, that's gone. And I've lost all my work. So I ended up working for this gang in East London, delivering drugs. That's where my alcoholism takes me. From this DJ that was flying all around the world, Miami, New York, etc., etc. I'm on the streets of East London hustling money to get my drink and whatever else I needed to get. And I'm living in a tiny flat. But now I can drink how I really want to drink. I've got no one watching me. I'm not sneaking around. So things get worse very quickly. And I somehow, as I said, I got introduced to the 12-step rooms. And I go to some meetings and I'm sat there, but I've got a huge ego, you know, because my ego can tell me I'm this huge DJ or whatever, and I'm not like you, and I'm looking, judging, and you know, we say to look for the similarities, not the differences. I was looking for the differences, not the similarities. And I'm never going to get well like that. I'm never going to get well just sat in the rooms of AA. And I'm a great expert on how not to do this, because I did that for many years and stayed very sick for many years just coming to meetings. Not understanding that the program is the 12 steps. And then we have the fellowship, and we have all the unity and all the bits make us whole. All the bits make me whole, not just one bit or the other. But first I needed to go through those 12 steps, which I didn't go through for another 7 years. So I go into a detox unit, the first one of many. And because I don't understand the illness, I truly believe that all I needed to do was take the alcohol out of me and I'm going to be fine. I'm never going to drink again. I'm never going to drink again, because that's the physical sorted out. That's the physical problem sorted out. Little did I know that it doesn't stop my mental obsession. And it certainly doesn't give me a defense against the first drink. It doesn't stop my head from lying to me, telling me that even though all my experience tells me that I can never just have one drink, my head would just say, it will be different this time. It will be different this time, and I'll believe it. So when I came out of that detox place, I didn't feel better. I felt worse, because alcohol was the solution to my life, solution to that sense of dis-ease, solution to the spikiness, solution to all my emotions, solution to everything. And suddenly I don't have that, and I've got no solution, and I feel terrible because I don't know how to experience life. And I go into a rehab, and I start going to 90 meetings in 90 days, and I think I'm okay. You know, I think I'm all right. I feel a bit rubbish, but I think I'm okay. I'm in that total delusion of self. And I always tell this story when I share, because I still feel it. I'm driving down the motorway one day to see my children, and all I've got to do is turn left, and I get to see the kids that I love dearly, more than anything in the world. Suddenly the thought comes into my head, if I stay on the road, I can go and get a drink. And I'm trying to turn with all my might, with all my heart, and the necessary power wasn't there. And I've got tears streaming down my face because I know what's going to happen. And this is the insanity we talk about in step 2. The insanity isn't the crazy stuff I do whilst intoxicated. The insanity is me picking up that drink sober, knowing what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen, really, deep down. I know what's going to happen, but I'm insane. I needed to understand that I'm insane when I go through this step 2. But little did I know then. So it starts off another cycle. For the next 7 years, I'm in and out of treatment centres, detoxes, psychiatric units, and other institutions. I'm going to meetings all this time. When I'm coming out, I'm going to meetings. I'm doing yoga. You know, that's going to keep me well, I believe. I'm going to the gym. I'm putting on weight. I get a new girlfriend, because that's what I used to do as well. I come out of a place like that, and I think I'm in love, because I've got this spiritual malady, this spiritual sickness in my soul. And when I attach myself to someone else, it feels okay for a minute. Unfortunately, I cause pain to that other person, and it only satisfies me temporary, like the alcohol, like the gambling, like the drugs. And so I'm always back out for what is my solution, is the alcohol. So I'll fast forward to the end. There's a great bit in the book on a vision for you, where it says, you know, it talks about the 4 horsemen, terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. The last year and a half of me in daily drinking, I wake up every day. I know those 4 horsemen by first name. They are visiting me. You know, I cannot live with drink. I cannot live without it. It's not doing for me what it used to. It's not taking away all that pain and discomfort. I've still got it when I'm drinking, and it's a terrible place to be, very painful. I don't see anyone for a year. No, my world is so small. I just see people in the off license where I'm going to steal bottles of vodka. I see drug dealers. I see the chemist. That's all. I'm not eating for 4 days at a time. Very bleak. And I can feel the light flickering out inside my heart as I lie on the sofa day after day. I've sold all my possessions. It was very bleak. But today, as I sit here, free and alive and joyful and peaceful, I can see that was the greatest gift that I was given. Because it was only through then that I was able to put aside what I thought I know and try and access this power and say, okay, I'm willing to believe, I'm willing to believe that something there is working for other people, and why can't it work for me? But it needed me to get to that sense of desperation. So I go into another psychiatric unit to detox for the very last time. And then I go into a 12-step rehab, and I was very, very fortunate. It was a fantastic 12-step rehab. And every day for 6 months, they took me through that big book. They'd show me videos of Joe and Charlie, and the guy who owns that place, he's got a great history in AA. He knew Joe and Charlie and all those people. Anyway, I was very fortunate to land in there. And I was like a sponge when I went in there, because suddenly I don't want to die anymore. I looked like I was about to die, but I didn't want to die anymore. And step one, I finally, I'd give up the fight. I understood that on my own power, there was nothing that I could do about this myself. Nothing on my own power. I tried for so many years. And the more I fought, the more difficult it became. Whenever I try and fight this stuff, I always lose. I had to give up the fight to start the journey, to use that cliche once again. I had to give up the fight. And I could see that my life was totally unmanageable inside and out, because that's what happens when I pick up. So I'm there, step one, okay. And then step two, suddenly I understood that when it comes to alcohol, I am insane. I'm insane. And I could come to believe, I didn't run in believing, because the faith thing and the God, because this is what this program is about. It's about God. I don't mind using that word today. Before, I wouldn't use it because I was embarrassed of what you'd think of me. I don't care anymore. I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I just mean, one of the beautiful things about this program is I've changed. When we talk about the psychic change, I've changed from a person who used to always be worried what people would think about me. If I was sharing like this, I'd be worried, am I sounding good enough? I would wear different masks with different people. I'm at a place where I'm okay. I'm okay with what you think about me. It's none of my business. And so I came to believe that something could help me out. And then step three, it was explained to me, all you got to do in step three is make a decision to go through with the rest of the steps. To turn your will and your life over, as explained to me, is your thinking and your action. But I didn't know how to do that then, because at that moment, I didn't see how messed up my thinking and my action was, even though it was quite obvious to everyone else. It was only as a result of going through the rest of the steps, step 4 and 5, for example, I can totally see how my thinking and action is flawed. And then I start learning what it means to turn my will towards God's will. If I'm acting a certain way, is this what God wants from me? If I'm moaning or bitching, is that God's will? No, it's my will. And that's the stuff that keeps me in pain. So my first spiritual awakening was at steps 4 and 5. As I said, I could suddenly see the patterns of behavior. I could see these resentments that were like the venom from a snake bite inside me, affecting the way I looked at the world, affecting failed relationship after failed relationship. Made me the way. My part in carrying these resentments made me kind of the person that I was, looking on the dark side of life. And so when I get to step 6, I'm entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. I could see how impatient, intolerant, selfish, self-centered how all those things I was one big walking defect of character, and I didn't want to be like that anymore. And I could see that that was going to block me off from this power, because by then I had a small shift. You know, I could feel different. And it was through the power of people in the rooms that were well, that I could see it had a spiritual awakening. I didn't know it then, but they had a spark in their eyes. That's where my faith grew. The power of people in the rooms. At first, that was the acorn that lit the fire for me. And I wanted it. I wanted what they had, and I was willing to go to any lengths to get it. And I still am today. Because it's not a one-time deal, this, is it? It's like, you know, there's no end. There's no end to the spiritual journey. There's no end to it at all. To walk sunlight in the spirit, hand in hand with the spirit of the universe, that's where I want to be. Being sober is just not enough for me. I want to keep growing every day, and that's what my experience is. I heard another beautiful thing, which whenever I hear a beautiful thing in a meeting, I'll just quote it, because, you know, I just want to share that with people. A lady said in a share the other day, she said, when we talk about the sunlight of the spirit in the book, she said, we can all imagine the sun on our face because it's beautiful. It's a bit hard to imagine that today, because I'm in the north of England and we don't have much sun in the winter. But the sun on your face, it's a beautiful feeling. She said, you know, we get the sunlight in our soul. You know, that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. And it's even more beautiful when we have tasted hell. I've tasted it, tasted that hell. Each day I can taste heaven, you know, right here, right now. The most spiritual thing I could do is embrace this moment with you guys right now, you know, because everything's perfect in this moment. There's nothing wrong in it. So anyway, I'm digressing. So 6 and 7 pivotal steps, because they're the things that are going to block me out, you know, these defects of character. Because it's almost like, you know, in its simplicity, it's like this program is trusting God, cleaning house and helping others. So I need to constantly clean house. 6 and 7, I start to see these defects of character hugely. And then I'm asking God, but I've got to give God a helping hand. You know, God doesn't need to remove the defects from himself, but I start acting differently, and then God helps me along the way, I believe. And then I wrote my amends, and I start doing my amends. And then the steps 10 and 11 and 12, you know, the daily, beautiful, spiritually nourishing and growing steps. I'm doing inventory constantly. I'm doing it last thing at night. I'm making amends whenever I'm wrong, which is all the time. You know, the other day I said something to my partner, and I felt it. And straight away I said, look, I need to apologize for that. I could never apologize before. You know, I needed to always be right. If we were talking about something that I had no knowledge of, and you knew a lot more than I would argue till I was black in the face that I'm right and you're wrong. I couldn't back down. And it's a beautiful thing to not have to be right. Someone said, would you rather be content and peaceful, or would you rather be right? I know which one is the more nourishing today. So it's got so many beautiful aspects of this program. When I came out of that rehab, they actually, I'll go back slightly. In that place, they installed very good habits in me. I started praying from day one, even though I had no faith when I first went in there. I could see that the people that were well told me they prayed. So I thought, okay, I'll just give it a go. I'll just give it a go. And so I've prayed from that day to this. And faith is huge in me today, from nothing. And it's just developed over time. Spiritual progress, like we talk about. I started doing readings as soon as I wake up in the morning in there. I started meditating every day. And I do those things today, the same things. I have 2 hours in the morning when I wake up and it's just me and God, because I can plug into my faith or I plug into my fear. And if I'm not plugging into my faith, the fear can creep in. The fear of the future, the fear of economic insecurity, all those things. But when I've got faith, when I'm plugged into the source, those things don't come into me. And if they come in during the day, I've got this simple set of spiritual tools, like it tells me in the book, that I can pick up. What are they? Prayer, meditation, speaking to other alcoholics, sharing on meetings, readings, getting into the big book, Zoom, fantastic, an extra spiritual tool in my armory. What an amazing thing, you know, and it has been beautiful connecting with all these guys around the world, you know, these guys that have got this great knowledge and wisdom. I feel like a sponge today. I'm always seeking out teachers because I try and approach each day like I'm a newcomer, you know, so I can be open to learning, because I need to be, because else my ego can get wrong sized, and the ego can be my enemy today. So I always need to try and right size myself. So anyway, when I came out of that rehab, I got a sponsor. And if there's anyone on here with no sponsor, how I picked mine, this guy in the meetings, it wasn't about the amount of time he had. It was just, he had this peace and serenity about him. And he wasn't just talking the talk in meetings. I watched him when he was outside, and he was the same person. And he helped a lot of people, and he did a lot of service, and he was really involved. And I wanted what he had. So I asked him, and he took me through the steps again. And I went through them again, and it was another beautiful process. You know, I kept awakening, you know, light bulbs kept going off, and they still do to this day. And he said to me, right, get service. So I did service, and I've always had service from that day to this. I'm very involved in the fellowship. And one of the things service did for me, making teas and coffees, I didn't want to do it because I wanted to be last in the meeting and first out. I didn't want to speak to you guys, but making coffees, I started feeling part of something rather than me alone, because me alone, I cannot do this on my own. And I started asking old timers questions, a lot of questions about this program, about the steps, about the big book. And so I learned off them, and I thank them from my heart. I really do. And then I started sponsoring after I went through the steps, because he drilled it into me. Once you've been through these steps, go out there and sponsor. You know, this is what you need to do. You know, Bill says in his story, doesn't it? You know, so nothing ensures immunity from drinking as intensive work with another alcoholic. It works when everything else fails. I've been through many things in my sobriety, deaths, heartbreak, you know, relatives very sick. Whenever I'm in that self, I just throw myself into helping out another alcoholic, and it always works. It gets me out of me, because I can be still selfish and self-centered to the core. But now, you know, I've got you guys to help me with that, because I can help a newcomer. And so I've always had sponsees from that day to this. It's very important. It's very important in this program to pass this stuff on. And why wouldn't I want to do that? My life has been saved. I have been reborn, like it says in the book. You know, I've been reborn. Absolutely. I'm not that broken person I was when I came in the rooms. I was desperate. I was hopeless. And today I love being alive. You know, I'm so grateful. I can't express my gratitude enough for this program and these 12 steps that have transformed my life. And it's there for anyone who wants it. But, you know, and I'll refer back to that reading. Half measures avail me nothing. Half measures avail us nothing, but full measures avail me everything. Peace in my heart, serenity in my soul, and they give me purpose and hope and direction. And it's all in there in the beautiful big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Really clear-cut directions, really clear-cut. All I had to do was follow those directions, and I get this spiritual awakening, this spiritual experience as the result of them. And I can continue being awake. And I will end it. I will end it here. I think my time's coming up anyway. I always like to end, well, not always. Sometimes I like to end my shares with reading the Step 10 Promises, because this is what's on offer here, particularly if there's any newcomers here or anyone struggling. Someone said, you know, if you've been around a while and you're not feeling on fire, maybe go through the steps again, because the fire is there waiting for you. Because I didn't come in to be holding on for dear life and struggling. You know, it doesn't mean life's perfect, because it isn't. But what this program and what God gives me is the ability to deal with life on life's terms, on God's terms, even when it's painful, even when it's challenging. Never think about picking up a drink, because I'm in this place of neutrality, like it promises in the Step 10 Promises. So I'm going to just quickly read this. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally. And we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude towards liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it. Neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we have been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We've not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It's been removed. How amazing is that? It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react, so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. But then it goes on. It's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. And we are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We're not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve, contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, will be done. Love that. That's what's on offer in this program. I'm the problem and God is the solution. And I'm able to access God by living this simple, beautiful program. I really hope someone got something out of my share today. Thank you so much for letting me share. And yeah, cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Young. That was a wonderful sharing. The